Waterkeeper. She's going to present 1,000 Eyes on the Water. It is a training seminar for Miami Waterkeeper's water patrol program. She will also touch on all of the kind of water quality issues that we've been having lately, because I know a lot of you want to know about that, and she has a lot of information about that. Just a few announcements. If there are any kids here for the Key Challenge, there's a sign-up sheet in the back. Make sure I get your name and your school. If you want to be on our mailing list for any future seminars or lectures, there's a mailing list in the back. Just write down your email address and your name, and I'll make sure you get added to our list. If you have a cell phone, please make sure and turn it off before or put on silent. If you have to take a call, just if you don't mind taking it out in the hallway. And please keep any questions you have, unless it's really pressing in that moment, but try to keep them towards the end so that we can get through in a timely manner. As some of you have already done, Laura passed out surveys in the beginning, and you'll have a post survey also, so once you watch the seminar, they want to know what your thoughts and feelings are about what you learned during the seminar. So make sure and stay around to fill that out. For those of you that don't know, I should have said this first, my name is Ramya, and I'm the Key Biscayne Foundation's Citizen Science Coordinator. We have monthly lectures, very similar to this, anything about science, local ecology, water quality, things that will interest our residents, and we want to make sure that they learn about the environment that they live within.
Hi, thank you all so much for being here tonight, and to Ramya and the Community Foundation for putting this together. It's working. Yeah. So yeah, she said, my name is Laura. I am the program director at Miami Waterkeeper. I used to work at the University of Miami at Harassment, so I know a lot of you from these types of presentations on my work there. So bringing it a little bit closer to home tonight and talking about the work that Miami Waterkeeper is doing right here on Key Biscayne and throughout Biscayne Bay. So we're going to go start with a little overview of Miami Waterkeeper for those of you who are not familiar with our organization. We're a local nonprofit that works to ensure swimmable, drinkable, fishable water for all. This is language right out of the Clean Water Act. And so we are focused on making sure that everyone has access to clean water. So we are part of the Waterkeeper Alliance, which is a global network of waterkeepers, people who are dedicated to the same mission of clean water. And it started in the Hudson River with a group of fishermen who were growing concerned about the river. They were starting to notice the fish were acting strangely, or there was strange colors or smells in the water. There's stories about, you could tell the color that a car plant was painting the cars that day based on the color of the river. I don't know if that's true or not, but so back then, this is the early 1960s, people were just directly dumping right into the river. And so this group of fishermen got together, created the Hudson Fishermen's Association, later became the Hudson River Keeper, and would go on water patrols, would drive around looking for pollution, right? And then we got the Clean Water Act, which gave citizens like these fishermen and like all of us here in this room, it gave us a special tool where we can actually bring lawsuits to federal agencies if they are not enforcing the Clean Water Act. And this is something that we have done. And so it's a really powerful tool, and it gives us all a voice and some strength in making sure that our water is clean. So bringing it a little closer to home, this is a map of Florida, and you can see the historic water flow. We used to have lots of fresh water coming down from north to south and bringing fresh water out into Biscayne Bay, right? We used to have so much fresh water that there were wells in springs in Biscayne Bay where people would go and fill up drinking water. And there's stories of pirates would come in and fill up their fresh water here in Biscayne Bay. The Miami River used to have rapids. There was so much fresh water coming in. And so really, this area was much more of an estuary. If we all remember back in science class, we learned an estuary is a mix of fresh and salt waters. It's brackish water, right? And so we used to have a lot more fresh water. We don't have that as much anymore. We have some, but now it comes through the canals, through pulses when it's being released. So we have less, and because you don't have this natural vegetation sort of naturally filtering and cleaning the water that's coming out into the bay, not only do we have less water, we have dirtier water coming out into Biscayne Bay. So this really changes how the bay operates, right? So this is our beautiful Biscayne Bay that we know and love. But over time, it's changing, right? The fresh water amount is decreasing. We have more salt water that brings different plants and different animals into the area. And we're going to go over today all of the different habitats here in Biscayne Bay and sort of some of the threats that they're facing and what we can all do to protect the water that we love. So we do this through community outreach and education, presentations like this. We do science-based research. So our executive director, Rachel Silverstein, is a PhD in coral ecology. So we're involved in coral reef protection. We do weekly water quality monitoring. So we're testing what's in the water and is it safe to go in or not. And then we also do advocacy. So you'll see us speaking at commission meetings. We will sometimes, when necessary, as a last resort, bring lawsuits. We have our general counsel and lawyers that we work with to bring lawsuits when necessary, like we discussed before. So here's the plan for the day. We're going to talk about the Thousand Eyes on the Water program. That's what we call this event, this training, where we're trying to teach 1,000 eyes, 500 people, how to join us in our effort of protecting our water. We'll go over the habitats, the pollution that we commonly see, actually what is water patrol, and then we have a fun quiz at the end. Don't worry, it's easy. Okay, so what is Thousand Eyes on the Water? So it is our signature community program. It's citizen-led. It's basically all of us being observant. We are going to talk about identifying, documenting, and reporting sources of pollution. And you can all do this on your own. We're just trying to make it easier for you and make you more likely to do it, right? By giving you some tips and telling you, how we do it, and basically just call us and we'll handle it. So who are the Thousand Eyes members? So you are. Anyone can be. You don't need a boat. You can do it walking the dog. You can do it while you're sitting, at the no-name harbor and just sitting there having a nice evening. Or you could be out on a boat. So this way, everyone's being observant and just looking out and seeing what looks strange. And then if something's not right, you let us know. So no specific qualifications, just the interest in being observant and looking out for our environment. We're going to go through the three main habitats. We've got mangroves. It's the first one we're going to talk about. So we all know our beautiful mangroves. They're trees that live along the coastline. They can tolerate salt water, and they're very important in protecting our coastline from hurricanes, storm surge, keeping the coastline where it is. We're all very concerned about erosion, right? So having more mangroves in an area will protect these coastline areas. They're also really great habitats. Small fish, crabs, different animals live inside the prop roots of the mangroves or up in the tree canopy. A lot of birds live in these areas. However, they're threatened by illegal removal, right? If you have mangroves in front of your house and you want that water view, you want to get rid of the mangroves, right? Well, you find somewhere else to live. Though it is illegal to remove mangroves, you can get a permit to trim or remove mangroves, but you do need a permit, even to trim. One branch, doesn't matter, you need a permit. So, what to look for? If someone is trimming mangroves, probably best to report it just in case, right? Especially if it's before or after a hurricane. Some people think they'll be really sly and trim their mangroves or cut their mangroves completely down and say, oh yeah, the hurricane did it. Well, except with all of us watching, we're going to take pictures. We're going to make sure that that is not happening, right? Do you all know that middle picture?
No.
Yes.
Yes, you do. It's the Marine Stadium. Yeah, this is a picture taken, this is a Miami Herald picture taken after the mangroves were cut down by the Marine Stadium to make space for the boat show. To my understanding, I don't know if they've ever been punished for that or not. That's excessively frustrating. Oops, wrong way.
By the contractor? Or
Contractor. The contractor. Next habitat we're going to talk about are coral reefs. For those of you that don't dive, maybe sometimes you don't think about our reefs all that often, but they're a really important barrier. They're the only barrier reef in the United States. This lighter color are coral reefs here. And they are really important habitats. Something like the majority of fish that we eat spend at least some portion of their life cycle on coral reefs. So they're really important habitats. They have a huge amount of biodiversity, one of some of the most biodiverse communities in the world. And they're really important for protecting our coastlines. So they actually slow down sort of the water's movement if a big storm is coming in and protecting Miami. We're concerned about physical damage, so people dropping an anchor on them or touching them or something like that while out on the reef. But climate change and sediment are some larger scale issues that we probably don't have a lot of control over for a specific reef, but they're definitely concerns. So what to look for? Boat anchor damage, bleaching, sediment in the water. So if sediment is stirred up, it may settle on the reefs and smother them, and that can really damage the corals. So in all those cases, you would report what you see. All right, so seagrass. Seagrass are amazing and really important. I feel like they don't get enough credit. So I really want you to take a moment and think about seagrass. Seagrass are both habitat, but they're also food for a lot of animals. Manatees eat seagrass, turtles. They're also really important for stabilizing the soil. So we just said that sediment being spilled up and moved around in the water column is really harmful to animals and corals. So seagrass can actually hold that sediment in place, and so it actually increases the clarity of the water. So this is something really important for Biscayne Bay. But unfortunately, we're having a huge seagrass die-off going on right now in Biscayne Bay. The Julia Tuttle Basin is been decimated. It's really a huge loss for our area. That is mostly from sort of an imbalance in the water chemistry, too many nutrients coming into the water, but there's also damage from boats. We're also seeing algae blooms impacting the seagrass. They sort of compete with each other, the algae and the seagrass. And so we need to make life easy for the seagrass so they can grow and thrive in this area. So what to look for? Pollution, generally speaking, impacts the viability of the seagrass. boat scars. This picture here is an aerial picture of a seagrass bed with these scars from a boat, you know, circling around it. So if your boat is too deep for a lot of areas in Biscayne Bay, average depth is only like 7 feet, but as you know, some areas are maybe only a few inches at different points in the tide cycle. So make sure that when you're out on the water, you're being aware of the depth so that we're not damaging the seagrass. Let's talk about some of the animals that live in the bay. There's 17 different species of endangered, or different types of endangered species that live in Biscayne Bay, and something wild like 500 or 600 different species of fish alone. So we have a really wide variety of animals that live in this area and that rely on a healthy ecosystem. They use food from the bay, bay's protection, nursery grounds, but unfortunately, entanglement, poaching, harassment are all major threats to all of the animals that we have in the bay. And I always want to take a moment and explain what harassment means. Harassment is not like me like poking at an alligator or something, right? Harassment is really any type of animal-human interaction. Marine mammals specifically, and all endangered species like manatees, you cannot touch them, you can't feed them, you can't give them hose with fresh water. The manatee rules is basically like, even if a manatee is swimming towards you on a beach and you're just standing there, you have to get out of the way. You can't impede their forward motion. It's that strict on endangered species protections. And so I always like to sort of take a moment and explain this harassment piece. It's a very broad term. So basically, enjoy from a distance and don't interact. There you go. So do not touch and report immediately. So when injured, of course you want to report an injured animal, but a lot of the endangered species are so rare that you want to report even just a sighting of them. So we have a whole slide dedicated to sawfish for this reason. So there's a database that scientists have where they're documenting every single sighting of sawfish. And so if you see a sawfish out on the water, you make sure to report it. FWC is compiling this, or you could tell us and we can pass it along to them. But so, you know, there's rare event species like that where they just want to know any time you see these animals. So pollution. So water pollution is defined as too much of a substance or too many substances in the water, right? Seems obvious. So we're going to go through commonly seen types of pollution here in Biscayne Bay. So the first one we're going to start with is nutrient pollution. When I say nutrients, I usually think of like the food that nourishes your body, right? Like nutrients are a good thing, except too much of a good thing is bad, right? So when we have too many nutrients entering the water, it creates problems. So the nutrients that we're concerned about are nitrogen and phosphorus. We're going to go through the sources of them, but when you have such high quantities of nitrogen and phosphorus in the water, it leads to algae blooms, fish kills, the algae then smothers the seagrass, and it causes human health impacts as well. Some people, when they're near an algae bloom, they have respiratory issues, or, you know, so it's just, it creates a chain reaction of problems. So some of the sources of nutrients that we commonly see are fertilizers. So we have been working incredibly hard the last few months on doing a ton of research on fertilizer and what areas have ordinances in place and which don't. Pretty much nowhere in Miami did until we started this. So we are recommending no fertilizing in the rainy season. The reason is because the ground's already wet. You're gonna put fertilizer on your lawn, and then it's gonna rain, and all of that is gonna wash into the waterway, especially for you all living here, right? So you're wasting money because it's not actually fertilizing your lawn, and it's causing a lot of harm to the surrounding water. So we say, don't even bother, it's a waste of your money. Don't bother during the rainy season. Don't fertilize ever, just be careful about when you do it. Slow release nitrogen, and no phosphorus. You just don't need the phosphorus and causes more harm than good. Don't bother. And then a setback means don't fertilize right up to the edge of the water. Same reason, it's more likely to just fall in or wash in to the water. And Key Biscayne is actually taking up this issue and discussing a fertilizer ordinance. And so this is some great information for you to stew on as you participate, hopefully, in the process of trying to decide which pieces of the recommendations go into a Key Biscayne ordinance. Animal waste might not seem like a big source, but if you think of all the pets, all the birds, all the animals that live in the Biscayne Bay watershed, it adds up, right? So that pet waste that's left in the park, again, gets washed into the water, bringing with it nutrient sources, but also some of this bacteria issues that we hear so much about in the news as well. Finally, sewer and septic. So I learned today there are 220 homes here on Key Biscayne that are still on septic, and you are being asked to get onto sewer in, I don't know what the deadline is, but it's very soon. When is it?
1 year.
1 year.
2020.
In 2020, right? So the great news is that Key Biscayne will be fixing, hopefully, some of these problems. The issue with septic is you have a big septic tank in your yard, your waste goes in there, it's self-treated inside that tank, and then it's designed to sort of slowly trickle down through the ground and go into, underground, right? But the problem is, we live so close to the water, right? We know what it's like at high tide when the water comes up into our streets, right? So guess where your sewage is going? Same place. So the septic tanks on Key Biscayne could also be some of the issues that we're seeing with the bacteria. Not all of it, but part of it. Sewer issues, we've been hearing about, we're trying very hard to work with the various municipalities to make sure that we're advocating for maintenance of the sewer lines and looking, being observant and making sure that any spill is reported and cleaned up and all of that. So what we can all do is just, if we have septic tanks, make sure it's maintained until it gets switched over and it's not leaking. And if you see anything strange or smell anything strange, to make sure to report all of that as well. This is the video from the 2017 leak from the pipe that went from the Virginia Key wastewater treatment plant to the outfall, at the ocean outfall. This was a leak that was reported to us. We went out and assessed it, realized that this was going on, did a public records request to find out what was going on with this. Did the county know that this was happening, or were there plans to fix it, all that kind of stuff. Turns out we learned that the county had known for a year and didn't fix it. So we wrote a letter of intent to sue and we went to the media, and within 3 days it was fixed. Yay! So, things like this is when you all are observant and you report things that you see, we can make positive change very quickly if we know it's happening, right? We only have 6 staff, so we need your help when things like this are going on. The pipe is underground, kind of like the pipe's underground, and that's a hole, and that's treated sewage, in fairness. So it's treated sewage. So this is what is intentionally put out into the ocean. So it should be safe. There shouldn't be bacteria in it, but there's chemicals and things in it. It's just something that you don't want so close to shore.
That was coming from the water treatment plant, Virginia Key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was in 2017. So we can talk about later afterwards. We can talk about the recent one. There was a leak from the treatment plant last week due to a power outage. All of the tests from in the area that were tested on Monday all came back clean. So it looks like it's all okay.
Do we have a map?
I don't know.
Where is it?
Yes, there are maps of where these are. I don't know how often they're checked. We do weekly water quality monitoring, and so I added this slide for you all tonight. This isn't part of our normal presentation, but I know this is a hot button issue. So every Monday we test, this is a mixture of our sites and the Department of Health sites on Key Biscayne and Virginia Key. The ones with the 2 dots were graciously sponsored by the Key Biscayne Community Foundation, thank you, for the last year, so October to October. And so you can see 87% of our tests passed, means water was clean, no bacteria. So when we talk about this, we're testing for bacteria. Fecal indicator bacteria, or enterococci. So basically it's the EPA's recommendation on what to look for to detect fecal matter, whether it's human or animal, I can't tell you, but the bacteria is present, and so there's a chance that other things found in human waste could also be present. So that's sort of the gray area, right? So 13% of the time it failed though, so that's still a pretty high number. And then I ranked them by the most number of fails. So obviously, we're still having issues with Crandon. Yacht Club, like, so clean all the time. It's very rare that it fails. So go swim at the yacht club. I don't know if you're allowed, but anyway. So I thought that would be of interest. All right, we're good?
Can I ask you a question about the testing?
Yes.
So if you say Crandon North is negative, like red, don't swim, but Crandon South it says green.
Yeah.
How does that make
It happens all the
I
time.
know, it doesn't make
So, I mean, I could test here and Ramya could test in the exact same time and we could still get totally different results. So the water is constantly moving, right? So I'm testing this spot at this moment. That's it, right? So it's very limited on what we're getting. So that's why there's so many sites, right? Is because, you know, we can't just have one Key Biscayne site and then say, oh, it's representative of the entire community. Clearly it's not. So oftentimes we'll test at one site and the Department of Health tests another site, or Department of Health tests right next to each other, and they'll still come back differently. So that's just because whatever is in the water, that patch of bacteria, that whatever it is just moving along, and then it goes, right? So sometimes you can test an hour later and it's not there anymore. So, you know, if we could test every single day, we would. It's just cost prohibitive, right? But, you know, it sort of gives us information about which areas maybe we should test more, which areas we shouldn't waste our time with. So at least it gives us some guidance on that. Yeah.
Could I ask you, when you say it costs a lot, for example, how much is testing on each site? Or
sure, each site for a year of testing is $10,000. Yes.
And what would the boundaries for Key Biscayne Beach be? Would that be south of
Key Biscayne Beach, I believe.
The beach club?
Again, they're a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Key Biscayne Beach, I believe, is near the beach club, like at Residence Beach. And then Biscayne Nature Center is like, if you walk out directly from the path, we just go straight, right? So each one, I should have had a map. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I just was curious what we would reference, since you're, you know, those designations are very clear about what they represent in Key Biscayne Beach.
Yep.
Less than clear.
Thank you for asking that. All of this is on the Swim Guide app or the swimguide.org. And so we always recommend that people go there. We put our data, Department of Health data, Surfrider data, all gets put into the swim guide. So it's sort of a one-stop shop. So you don't have to go and try and figure out where the Department of Health puts their data and how to look at ours, right? So it's all in the swim guide. So it's an app, it's free, it's super easy. It's green is clear, red is don't swim. And so there's also a map, and it'll show you where each of the sampling sites are. It'll show you which date we sampled last. All of that information is there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Back up a little. Source testing. You mentioned that there was a test that differentiates between human waste and animal waste. Very expensive.
It's very expensive.
No one's ever done it on any of these sites?
Oh yes, some people have. So we selectively, right? So if a site is failing regularly and we can't really, doesn't make sense why, we'll go to another lab that does source tracking and have them do it for us. So we'll save our samples and then send it out. So it is done infrequently because of the cost, but it's usually used when there is a recurring failure and we don't know why.
But for example, Crannon's been failing for years. We don't know if that's animal waste or human waste. It could be an outfall from the old zoo.
Absolutely.
It could be Virginia Key.
Yep.
But we don't, it seems like that.
We have not done that.
Okay, that's fine now.
Yeah. Happy to.
And when you do Grandin, you do it way out or you do it by the sack,
We walk out until we're about like thigh depth, and then so I think I forget the number of inches. I don't actually do it.
Do you have a map of these test sites?
Yep, it's on the swim guide.
Pardon me?
Theswimguide.org. Or I can,
Where
I don't
you
know,
have
send it, I can.
Actual sites where they're being tested?
Yes, we test the same sites every week.
And that effluent that you showed coming out of a pipe, do you have that on a map?
I do.
You do?
It was 3/4 of a mile straight out from Virginia Key, so sort of between Key Biscayne and Fisher Island.
Yeah, got that.
3/4 of a mile from Virginia Key, straight out to the ocean, like directly east.
And that's a break, or is that a purposeful?
No, it was a crack, and they fixed it. That was 2 years ago.
Oh, are there many of those?
It's a wonderful question.
need to go scuba diving.
Well,
Let us know if
why
you
do
find
get
any
the
more.
Information. I don't think the public are.
Someone
privy to the
saw it
information.
and reported it.
Huh?
Someone saw that and reported it.
Yeah, that I understand
Yeah.
that, but how do you get the information out of the Department of Environmental?
So the government agencies, the
Yeah,
county
yeah.
and such, a public records request,
Do they release that to the public?
they have to.
They have to.
They have to.
Sure.
Yep.
No FOIA or anything like that required?
The latest advisory, the one that was lifted today.
It's lifted.
Including, there was a contact advisory, including boating. How far offshore, Key Biscayne, is that, when they say no boating, how far offshore are they done that?
I don't think it's very far. I don't know. They didn't give a map. They just said
Well, they just say no boating. but-
Key Biscayne area.
Why are like ships still able to dump their waste into the ocean?
I want to say they're not, right? Like they're not allowed, ships that in port have very strict rules. They're not allowed to dump inside the bay, at the port. When they're out on the ocean, there are very specific guidelines. The incidences that you hear about in the news, they were doing something illegal. They're not allowed to do what they were doing, and they were then fined and are on, what is it, like probation? Yeah, is that what you do?
If they're
Yeah,
caught.
absolutely. Yep,
It also
for
depends,
sure.
how far offshore they are, because then they're outside of our jurisdiction and it becomes federal. And, again, it has, if there's nobody out there watching them, then they'll just kind of do whatever they want, because it's cheaper for them too. Because
Yeah.
following the rules is much more expensive.
Are you monitoring what's happening in terms of compliance with the EPA mandates that we've had? And can you tell us about it?
I don't know a lot of information about it. The short answer is yes, Miami Waterkeeper is. I don't have a ton of information on it personally. It's the consent decree that you're talking about. It is ongoing. I don't know if they're on track or, I don't know details of it, but it is happening. Yeah, it has to, right? So for those of you who don't know, there's a consent decree, basically a mandate from the state that Miami-Dade County has to fix the sewage infrastructure. So part of that is changing from offshore pipes like we saw here to deep injection wells. So by 2025, they will discontinue the use of the outfall pipes.
Supposedly.
Oh, well, I mean, they have to. Yeah. Whether they're on track or on timeline, I don't know. But, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about the water here, and it's been years, as gentlemen over here said, you know, trying to be dirty and things like that. And we all walk, run, and build sandcastles with our kids and grandkids in the sand many times below the high tide mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
What, if any, concerns should we have about that?
I would love to direct you to a University of Miami professor named Hola Gabrielle, who does studies on our beaches, on the sand. Several years ago, there was a study along the Causeway Beach and had people actually go in the water to see and then sit on the sand and see whether or not they got sick. She's actually doing a study right now with the Key Biscayne Community Foundation?
No, with the village.
With the village of Key Biscayne, to do some of these assessments. But it's an active project going on right now, so I don't have results or anything, or I don't know of results yet to share with you. But yeah, these are some of the questions that she is trying to look at.
If I could add
Yeah,
that.
please.
They have gotten results back.
Oh, great.
We don't have them, but you can request them from the village. And she does testing in the sand, in shallow water, and I think like slightly over waist deep or something. So they do
Solo,
progressive
SOLO dash Gabrielle,
really heavily. I try to be involved. I'm a lifelong surfer, you know, been involved, surf rider, and I volunteered to help them with testing here. Just, you know, there's some logistical challenges with it. But my concern is that a lot of this information is not getting out. And so, like you just said, I have to go and request it from the village. It's like, why would
I don't know that they're, I just know that they have, that they're working with her. I don't, as far as I know, they haven't released the
So
studies,
it's,
but
I mean,
don't know
it's like,
not even of you. I'm saying in general, I find
Yeah.
that I find out about stuff because of these little back channels that I know, and websites, and of course the website you just gave us.
But this will dictate whether they issue like a
It's
swimming
sad,
advisory
it's
or
not
something
out
like
there.
that, but.
My neighbors
yeah.
don't know about this stuff.
just to sort of like defend that is, they got, the village got results this week. So it's not like they're withholding information for months at a time. It's a piece of the project shared results with them, and so they're probably writing a report and preparing to share it. So,
It's also if they get, like,
there's dirty water and it's not reported.
It's swim advisories in general. I mean, you have to.
the swim advisories are all posted through the swim guide app.
I saw the report this morning, it's not ready yet. It's a 3-part. The second part, which is scheduled for next year, is what you're asking about.
Yeah.
We're gonna take 3 locations in the sand and 3 locations in the water. That, I don't think the report I read today, that is even started.
I'm more speaking generally. I mean, look, we had.
I'm saying,
there was
we're
a
paying
spill
50 grand for this already. It's in process, so.
And I appreciate you saying that. I totally, and I'm happy to when it comes out. My issue is that in general, what I've found is that it's not public, it doesn't seem very publicly known, these things. And it's because it's not really being put out there. Like, we live here, like, we're not seeing advisories, many times there are. Not this recent one, that one got out. But there's been many that have not been reported, and it's frustrating.
I mean, the reporting is kind of difficult for all of the agencies. Like sometimes the county will put out an advisory and they have signs on the beaches supposedly, and nobody will see them because they're little tiny signs that you just don't notice. And if you don't get the actual advisory by email or by text or you don't check, or you're not like watching the swim guide or whatever it is, a lot of people just don't get the advisories.
Right.
As far as like what the village is doing, I haven't seen the report, so I don't know. But I mean, you can also imagine if there is something that is worrisome, they will issue a report. So it's very possible, and I'm saying this without knowing. Keep that in mind. But I assume that like if there's nothing that's been specifically detrimental that's come out, so they haven't necessarily reported it right away. Or like reported it to the public, because there's nothing in there that's like that you need to worry about except when we get these swim advisories. That they do try to, and there is like the village has on their website, and I don't remember exactly where, but you can sign up for text alerts, and they'll tell you when things are going on.
But they're working with rules and field.
Yeah.
Are they working with UM?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. She's the one doing the testing in the sand and in shallow water.
Do you know if part of that study that, I forget the name of the woman that is with Rasmus is doing, or Rosensteel, is tracking the source?
It's very, very hard to determine, but that is part of it. Yep.
So that's part of the.
I think that's a ideal goal.
The programs that were offered through and I would, offer out to you, it's a citizen incumbent issue. You know we have a problem. It's not leaving in 5 minutes. You look at all these multifaceted causes. People ask for the beach to be clean of dead seagrass. And then what did that cause? They were burying it up at Cranon Park and giving us a bigger bacteria problem. Because where did the water become clean and not be bacteria ridden? At Bill Baggs, where they don't do it and didn't do it and never did it, never raked, never cleaned, never buried. And Rachel gave many programs last year that were incredibly informative. And if I could put a dig for the organization, become a member. It's really, really important. What their work is important.
Thank you. Yeah, you're all invited to become members. We appreciate it. But yeah, it's because we are out there every day trying to scream from the rooftops when there are advisories and when things are, or when we need people to show up to council meetings or commission meetings and all of this. So thank you. I have so much more to go. If you guys ever want to go to bed tonight, we got to keep moving. Oil in the water is bad, right? That's no good. So it's toxic to wildlife. Look for rainbow sheens. You should not see oil in the water. If you do, report it. It should not be in the marinas. No, there's no excuse. If oil spills while you're, filling up your boat or something, it needs to be cleaned up, right? So I think stay aware of marinas to make sure that it's all, everyone's doing the proper methodology in order to make sure the water's staying clean. Detergent is really one that I hadn't really thought too much about, but is indeed an issue. It's harmful to wildlife. We can look for bubbles in the water. Oftentimes it might be coming from a marina where you're washing your boat in the water or above the water. Yes, there are biodegradable soaps made for washing boats. Make sure you're using one of those and you're not just using whatever soap you have laying around that kitchen. Also, storm drains near car washes, they have special ways of managing that, so make sure that that's being properly disposed of and not just all washing. So I gave this talk the other day and someone told me they live along a canal and their neighbor's washing machine dumps directly into the canal. Like there's a PVC pipe that just dumps into the canal. You are not allowed to do that, no. These are a lot of the common sources of pollution that we are seeing. So what we ask all of you to do is be observant, report what you're seeing. You have the option, right? So if I know when I see an injured manatee, I know I have to call whatever, Florida Fish and Wildlife. But a lot of us don't know who to call, right? When you see a sediment plume coming out of a storm drain, who do you call? In your case, a lot of the time it's probably the village. Sometimes it's the county. Sometimes it's the city, depending on where you live, which storm drain, all of this. And so we're just trying to make your life easier by saying, report it to us. We have a lot of really amazing contacts through all of the municipalities. We know sort of the right person to call to make sure things get done and work really well with all of them. And we will also follow up and be annoying if we need to. And then,
Do you guys go check to make sure what we're reporting is?
Oh yeah, so that's part of it too, is we'll also like triage a little bit too, right? So we'll make sure that, if someone calls us and says, I saw a soda can on the beach, we're not gonna report that to the county, right? There's nothing anyone can do. Pick it up and put it in the trash, right? If there's very large washing machine dumping, right? We'll figure out which municipality it is and call the appropriate authority for that, right? So we'll do all of that legwork just because by now we sort of just know who to call, right? But we'll also follow up. And the concern is that you might not, right? You're busy, this is not your full-time job, so, or you'll take a picture, mean to report it later and forget because you have to look up who it is, right? So we're just trying to make your life easier. So if you report it to us, we'll do all of the legwork and the hard part of it, right? So that's why we recommend reporting it to us.
Do you have an app?
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. So, not yet, but we have been very fortunate to partner with Google and one of their consulting companies that they work with, Cloud39, or Cloud29. And so we're working with them right now, and we should have sort of like another draft of it this week. And so we will send it out to all of you once it is ready. So then, exactly, it's gonna be super easy. On the app, you'll just take a picture. You can it'll just do the location right inside the app and everything. You'll take a picture, you'll explain what you see, done, right? And so through all of this, it'll get automatically sent to us and we'll be able to follow up on it, and it'll give us a lot more information, right? Because right now, we're just asking people to like call or email us. And then someone will call and be like, I saw oil in Biscayne Bay. That's not helpful. Be as specific as possible for location, right? First and foremost, location, location, location.
Boat that went down, and it's been sitting there for a while.
By Biscaya?
In front of Biscaya, like
okay.
right at, you know where the in front of the barge, you know how you have to come in with the boat through the channel?
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the channel, before you go in, there's been a boat that's been there for months.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, is somebody supposed to clean that up?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just been, it's been there since last
So
summer.
I know after Irma, DP was doing a lot of the coordination with boat removal. I don't know if it's always their job or if it was just during, you know, such a large scale removal. But yeah, I didn't realize that, so I'll look into it. Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, please. This was a dumpster leaking, and the water was right nearby. And so it was leaking, and someone reported this to us, and we called it. And within hours, an inspector went out and issued a citation, and they had 3 days to fix it, replace the dumpster, line it, whatever they do. And so I feel like that was like a really cool example of something they were at the grocery store, they saw this, took a picture, sent it to us. In a few hours, it was resolved. So it was a really fast reporting process, and it's really important. Who knows what's in there, right? What do we do, right? Observe, document, report. This is my legal slide. I'm required to show you this. Everyone pay attention. Safety first, right? Don't try and clean up a spill. Don't confront someone doing something. Take a picture, a video, as much information as you can, and report it. I do always like to point out, though, that most waterways are public. So you are allowed to be on the water, you just can't walk up onto someone's property. No climbing the seawalls. What to report? Location, 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 right? We talked about that. Ideally, GPS coordinates, an address if you can't get that. Landmarks, I saw it 100 feet from the lighthouse, right? That gives us some idea of where it is. Water and weather conditions are sometimes something that people forget but are really important. If it's raining really hard and there's stuff spewing out a storm drain, that gives us information about why, right? So as much information as you can provide, photos and video, and then remember timing. If it's actively spilling, you know, you really want to make sure that gets reported right away, because timing is an issue, and we need to make sure that gets stopped. So here is our email and phone number and website. Take a picture, it's easier. We can also email all of this out to you afterwards, but it's report@miamiwaterkeeper.org. If you email us, or if you do the application on our website to be part of the Water Patrol, we will make sure to send you the app once it is live. Very excited.
What about the other chemicals? Are you testing for anything else?
We are not.
Is there anyone that's doing that?
Yeah, so the county and the state, like DEP, they test for a whole suite of other things. They're testing for nutrients, chemicals, acetaminophen, all sorts of other things. But they do that less frequently. And so we're testing on a weekly basis, but on a lower budget, right? So we can't test all the things every week. So we sort of, try and look at, we have access to all of their data as well. And so we sort of try and bring all of the different entities together, pooling resources. Time for the quiz. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a picture. We're going to pretend we're on patrol, and then you are going to tell me if it should be reported or not.
Yes, should be reported.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that is, but don't be dumping things. Don't be dumping things down the storm drain. No. Paint or whatever it is. Ew. Yeah, so I would report this. It is very likely that if you have an algae bloom of this scale, the appropriate authorities already know. But maybe it's spreading and you live near the water and this comes towards your house. Maybe they don't know it's gotten that far yet, right? So when in doubt, report. This is a true story. This just recently happened. This is another one of the reports that we received. This is a construction site downtown, and it rained. It was one of those August, torrential downpours. And rain, rain, rain. There was a storm drain that was not covered. At construction sites, everything's supposed to be covered, fencing all around to keep everything contained, right? So it rained, and the sediment from the construction site was pouring out of a storm drain, and the person taking the picture was at home in their condo and saw this, took a picture, and sent it to us. We followed up, same thing, within a few hours. There was an inspector out there. They walked the entire construction site, making sure that everything was in place. So not only was that one storm drain covered, probably took them hours to walk through the whole thing. So, yay. Yeah, so your eye first goes to, obviously this giant sunken boat. But what else do we see? Oil. There's the oil. So not only do we need to report this, we need to report it fast because it's still actively leaking. All right, so I talked about don't report the Coke can you see on the beach, right? There's nothing I can do about it. But when you have either a reoccurring issue or a huge amount of debris, boat, something, that's worth reporting, right? There are these booms here purposefully to stop the debris from going, continuing down the canal, but stuff is slipping through, right? It should be more regularly maintained, obviously. This is an interesting one. Everyone sort of gets stumped here. So we don't know where this is. So the color of the water seems odd to me, but I know that there's a lot of rivers up north that maybe just have more iron or something, whatever it is, it makes it more of this red tannins, thank you. So this actually might be totally normal. I'm just not sure, so I'm gonna report it. But also mixed with this, you have a ton of sediment coming down. Maybe there's a construction site up top that's leaking. Maybe this is totally normal. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna report it. Okay, this is happening now, right now, okay? So, not really live, this was taken 6 months ago, but it's still happening. So this is the end of 27th Avenue, Coconut Grove in Dinner Key Marina, and it is always running. It hadn't rained in 5 days. Where's this water coming from? We see debris coming from it. We have determined it's a Department of Transportation outfall, so it's probably coming from a street somewhere. But why is there so much water? It's a mystery, and we cannot figure it out, and it's really bugging us. So we are continuing to investigate this, but this is
fast all the time?
Yeah. So this is one that, let's say you walk along Dinner Key Marina, just strolling after dinner, going for a walk. If you see this one day, you're not going to think much of it, right? Oh, okay, whatever. That's what storm drains do. But if you walk every day in that same area and you continue to see, and you're like, that's weird. I'm going to report that, right? Because it hasn't rained in days and this is still coming out and this seems odd, right? Or if you see something of concern coming out of it. I'm not sure if it was this one or a similar area over the summer. There was another plume of sediment coming out into Dinner Key, and that was reported. And it was a construction company up in Cocoa Walk, and they got fined.
No, of course not.
Yes.
No, it's totally fine. What's wrong with it? Yeah, it's totally fine. He wouldn't report it. They're on land. He's all covered up. That's his choice. But so yeah, this is totally fine. Tricked ya. That's true. That's true. We talked about this. Do not anchor on our reefs, right? Use the mooring balls. Not Chicago. We think it's from Blue Water, Baltimore, so I'm assuming it's near Baltimore. This is weird. That is not a normal color. So if you see normal color, it might be like some sort of chemical or something. Maybe it has a smell to it. Definitely report that. Yeah, this is bad. What happens when it rains 5 minutes later? Where's all that going to go? Psh, right, yep, right down the, pretend there's a creek over there or something, right? So construction sites are supposed to be contained. You're supposed to have something, there's usually like rocks or something that sort of try and minimize the amounts of dirt and debris that come out. Similarly, it's all supposed to be fenced in and contained. So they tried, but the fence failed and hadn't been fixed, and so you have all of this sediment coming out. Yeah, it's not a great.
Yeah.
Yes, suds in the water, that's not normal. Oh. It's a fish kill, right. So, you know, by this picture, we don't know why. We don't know the cause of it, but I would be very concerned. I wouldn't want to go in this water if all the fish are dying, right? And so you definitely want to report this. No!
Busted.
I can't even, I get so angry. This man went to jail, you'll all be happy to know. But you may not touch manatees. You may definitely not bring them up onto land so your twins can touch them. Obviously this is photoshopped, right? But, and done funny, you know, right? So, yeah, don't, you know, just be careful when washing your cars and making sure it's not all washing into the bay. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, but I have one more request for you. So, we are working with the Miami Foundation Sea Level Rise Working Group. And it's a group you know, organized by the Miami Foundation, but there are lots of different entities involved. And they're trying to decide their 2020 priorities. When you do your post survey, to write 1, 2, or 3 up in the corner about which priority area you think, based on what you learned tonight, based on what you know and what's important to you already, which priority area do you think that this Sea Level Rise Working Group should focus their priorities on for 2020? So I'll quickly run through what they are. Equity-based criteria for resilience, disaster relief, and infrastructure project spending. So when the government is trying to decide, or I guess the Miami Foundation and Resilient 305 and all of that, when they're trying to decide how to spend money, creating a more resilient Miami, should equity issues be included? And sort of, I guess, to what point, right? Sort of they would investigate how to distribute money in a way. A lot of the times when you're deciding which projects to fund, you look at the value, right? You want to spend the least amount of money to protect the most amount of real estate, businesses, whatever it is, but a lot of the times that means that the expensive waterfront properties get more protection than some areas that are not in, or some people who are not in those areas, right? So that is priority area 1. 2 is incorporate development review checklist in Miami-Dade Comprehensive Development Master Plan. So there is a comprehensive development master plan. Should adaptation, or should they adopt resilience measures into its general objectives and policies? So should they have sea level rise projections, flood risk, storm surge risks as part of evaluation of development in the future? Okay, and then the third one is ban permitting of new septic in Miami-Dade County. So we talked a lot about septic. This one is basically just saying no new septic. So should we allow someone who's building a house to have a septic tank?
So that is still allowed?
It is still allowed. Yep. Mostly, I mean, it's happening mostly west, south, right? But it's basically, if there's not a sewer line going down your street, you're allowed to have a septic tank.
Why is it still allowed?
It's an excellent question. Okay. So, if you wouldn't mind stewing on this for a moment, and then marking on your post survey whether or not you think that, or which one of these do you think should be the focus of their work in 2020?
Why can't we afford all three?
It's a great question. I am the messenger. So maybe they are, but maybe they want to say which one's going to go first, which one's going to get more money. There may be a part of it. I'm hoping this is low-hanging fruit, but you never know, right? There's a lot of voices.
Doing should encompass.
I presented the information to you. Okay, so you stew on that. I will leave this here. This is our website. And to be an official Water Patrol member, you can fill out the application and sign a waiver, all of that good stuff. It's all on our website. The website also has an incident report form if you'd prefer to be really official and do it instead of just emailing us. It has the presentation. It has whole handbook with more information than you would ever want. All of that is there. And I would like to thank the Key Biscayne Community Foundation and all the sponsors of the Thousand Eyes on the Water project. And the website is there again. So I'll leave that while you do your surveys. And while you do your surveys, I will take more of your wonderful questions.
Could you speak back to testing? You mentioned earlier that two of you could take the same test initially, the same place, same time, and come back with different results.
Yes.
Add that to it, it takes what, 24 hours turnaround time?
Yes.
Add to that, it takes 2 positive tests for the county to release the warning?
It takes 2 failed results, right? So 2 rounds of high levels of bacteria to issue an advisory. So they post their data 24 hours later, but they won't issue like a press release and go to social media and all of that until it's been 2 failed. Partly because of the same reason, right? Is they don't want to say that there's, an issue if it was just that one little blip and then went away, right?
But on the other side, I could be swimming in water for 4 days.
4 days.
In the morning and not know it.
Yep, absolutely. So that's why we err on the side of caution. So the minute we get anything over 70, we close it. And anytime we see anything from the Department of Health, we put it on Swim Guide as red, don't swim, immediately. It takes us 24 hours.
Liquid fertilizer, the immediately percolates, is that impacting storm drain in the water?
I would argue that because of where you live, you're so close to the water. But yeah, that actually might be a good recommendation to include, right? So I didn't do the research on that piece of it, so I'm going to go and ask the rest of the team whether that is something that they've looked into and maybe it's part of the recommendation. So the advisory was lifted. So she's asking about the Virginia Key treatment plant spill that happened on Saturday, I guess, because we posted it on Sunday morning. I was like, woke up to that. So there was a power outage at the sewer treatment plant. Yes. So there was a power outage that led to a spill. I don't know how it got from point A to point B, but that's what the press release said, right? And then they issued an advisory immediately and left the advisory up until Wednesday.
I just got the notice today.
The county's press release went out yesterday. All the tests that were tested Monday came back Tuesday. We're all clear.
But you guys don't test there.
So we did this week,
Okay.
and that it did fail. That's true. You're right. You're right.
That's what I'm getting.
So there's people kayaking and swimming and everything back in there, right? So that is the most immediate risk, right? They closed all the other beaches as a precaution, but the Key Biscayne Beach, South Beach, all of those came back clear. So they treated it. There was chlorine in it.
Which is also bad, right? Because that's going to kill the seagrass. Okay, I know. Okay.
You're a very smart group. I don't need to be here. You all know everything already. Yeah, yeah, right. It's like a domino effect, right? So, I mean, really, ultimately, is we need to get off septic and we need to fix the sewer system.